Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. I'm John, and this is a video that it's taken me entirely too long to make. Rut Manufacturing, many months ago, sent me this attachment. After seeing some of my other videos, they thought this would suit me well around the farm, and sure enough, they were right. So I call this a side cutter. They call this their boom mower for a skid steer. Quite honestly, when they said, I want to send you a side cutter, I thought, I don't know how much use I would have for that, but I'm also not one to turn down tools, so I said, sure, send it on. So I should mention that Rut sent this to me with no strings attached. I have had absolutely zero pressure from them, and I'm free to do an honest review, which is what I'm going to do in this video, of course. I need to tell you a little story here. I put it to work fairly early on, but I didn't record it. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for the machine, and I rapidly broke it. That's part of why it's taken me so long to make this video. Let me explain what happened. It was totally my fault. And then after that, I want to show you the attachment because it's a pretty nice unit. So I did what I'm often guilty of when I get a new tool, which is just throwing it on there and using it and not really thinking through things before I do that. So obviously it came with the hydraulic lines, and I ran them straight out of the side of this hole, and then they went up to the attachments. The problem was, in my skid steer, with the boom the way it is, you cannot see that at all when you're using the unit. So I was cutting a bunch of things. It was working great. And there was a bunch of sticks on the ground after, me cutting and cutting and cutting, and I was running over them. Yeah, big deal. Well, of course, some of the sticks have forks in them, and a big heavy one, I'm assuming, because I didn't see it happen, a big heavy one caught the lines, and then they got yanked against this, and it ripped them, because, that's a pretty sharp edge there. Started spewing hydraulic oil everywhere, and yeah, so I had to replace both of the lines. And it didn't hurt anything else, of course. It's a very well-built unit, but it just took me a while to get it fixed. And I got slightly different length lines that are customized for my machine. I put hose protection on them. I ran them up above here to keep them off the ground on that side. And I put double hose protection where they're going to be contacting this. I also rounded that off. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that is now. The moral of the story is, whenever you get a new attachment and you put it on your machine, you need to engage the old thinker up there and decide, is that going to be a problem? And it's pretty obvious that it was, because the hoses were coming out, they were looping down, and then going up to the attachment. So of course, at some point, you're going to hit something with that. And that's exactly what happened. So that was my fault. Let's start out with the cutter head. I mean, this thing cuts like butter. It rotates very fast, and everything it comes into contact with, it just lops off. It hardly even notices anything. And it comes with, well, let me show you. Kind of a cool system. It comes with a tool battery that you plug in there. There you can see the tool battery, and that is a Badland remote receiver. And of course, they give you that too, plus the remote. And this allows you to control this cylinder from the cab. So you don't actually need to have the electrical hookup, and you also don't need a separate aux circuit. It's running off of the same fluid pressure that's running the cutter and coming through these lines. So basically, this is controlling a control valve in there that is diverting pressure from the cutter to that cylinder to put it up and down. So you can cut with it flat, you can even cut with it tilting down, you can cut with it vertically, however you want. So it's pretty versatile. Got a nice heavy beam on it. All of this looks like 3/8 inch plate. It's very well built. And out here we've got our hydraulic motor with a 90-degree gearbox, and you've seen the cutter. And I'm willing to bet there's other people out there thinking the same thing I was, like, yeah, that's cool, but I probably wouldn't use it that much. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you some of the uses for it, and I gotta say, it is really, really nice for a lot of the things that I have to do around here. When you're working on trails where everything is coming into the trail from the side, using a cutter on the front there's just a lot of sideways, back and forth, doing this and that. With this, you just run right down it, and it makes it so much faster. You think, oh, well, I don't want to put a new attachment on just for that. Yeah, it's worth it. Let's put this thing to work. those lines weren't coming up there, I would not be able to see them. So now I've got clear view. I know if they're getting on anything. Before down there, I just couldn't tell. All right, so we're turning the blade on. We are cutting. Look at that. Just clean it right up. So I'm going to go ahead and take this tree out. I'll tilt down and back up.
So this is one of those things, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I mean, I have a mulcher for the excavator. I could certainly do this job with that. I also have a front-loaded bush hog for the skid steer, and I could do it with that. But both of those would be significantly slower. Now I am speeding up the footage on the video because even though this is fast in real life, on a YouTube video it still seems slow, so trying to keep the action going. And here I've cut off a lot of stuff that's now laying in the field, so I go flat to chop it all up.
That is such a common thing. Every edge of field that I have constantly encroaches, and I constantly have to battle to fight it back. And it's just hard to get something that will give you a reasonable straight line in a short amount of time. This thing, I don't know if it's my favorite skid steer attachment, but it's up there. This thing is really, really nice. So that's how I turn it on. So it's on now. And I raised the pond level, so that's actually making this a little more difficult. But tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go around it twice. I'm going to do one cut kind of closer in so that I can see where the edge of the pond is and know that I'm not going to run off of anything. And then I'll do the second cut to get all the final stuff. I'm well up on the land now. I'm nowhere near the edge, but there's some places where it kind of encroaches into the land a little bit, and I don't want to have any surprises where I end up in the muck. Typically the grass wouldn't be out that far, so obviously you wouldn't need to do this two-strip method. Honestly, I could probably just not bother. I'm mowing the water. Yeah, see, I'm getting close to water here, so I'm going to go back to my two strips.
Sorry for all the back and forth head movement, but what I'm doing is watching the cutter and at the same time watching where the tracks of the skid steer are driving so that I don't drive into a swamp.
Here's a great use case. This tree is annoying, so let's clean it up. Make short work of something that used to be pretty time consuming and kind of difficult. I've gotten stuck mowing this area several times because where I'm walking right now is pretty squishy. I'm experimenting trying to find the most efficient way, so here I cut like at one height and then I turn around and go back and cut at another height. But I think that's less efficient. I think it's better to just do a little bit of back and forth and cut the full height that you want to cut all in one pass. So yeah, this really knocks it out pretty quick, but there's no fence here, there's nothing to hit, so this is pretty easy. Trying to trim like this when there's actually a fence there is a little bit of a different ballgame. We're going to go do a fence line that has a bunch of pines hanging out over it. It's always really annoying to mow because there's so many, and they're just getting worse and worse. There's a lot of things you can mow this with, but not many of them are going to be fast. It's not too bad down here. Up here towards the top, lot. You'll see what I mean. I'll be a little careful being this close to a fence. Make a mess real quick.
So yeah, working along a fence like this, you need a machine with very good controls, and that is where Takeuchi shines. I can really control this thing very precisely. I would not even try to do this with my New Holland that has the foot controls. I would hit that fence and cause a lot more work. I can put the blade down and very precisely cut right next to the fence and cut the little saplings growing there without hitting it.
Once you're above the height of the fence, you can actually reach over a little bit and knock that stuff back. Fence maintenance is not easy. It is a bear to do by hand, and even with something like a mulcher, it's just slow. And I really think this is the most efficient way I've seen to do it. So that looks a little rough, obviously, but we're just in a field. If I keep up with it, this hasn't, this fence basically hasn't been maintained since it was built, which was about 15 years ago. So yeah, if I keep up with this periodically, the cutoff amounts will be far less, and this field will get mowed with a regular bush hog and it'll chop all that stuff up. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. I've got other things to work on. This area was so thick you could hardly even see the fence. So the battery in the remote is very cool if you have a skid steer that doesn't have electrical connections, but this one does. So they also have the harness for that. You can just plug it in and control it from the skid steer.
There's really nothing to this in here. You just unplug two connectors and then plug the new ones in. And here I'm just zip tying the wires up so that we don't have any more things to fix.
All right, this is nice. So now I turn the blades on right there. So the blade is spinning, and now this controls the up and down of that. Very nice. So I've had a fair amount of requests lately for some farm-related content. I know I've been doing a lot of the hydroelectric stuff, and well, here you go. Ask and ye might receive. Going to check the cows, and this gate fell off the hinges again. It wasn't being very cooperative, but finally got it back on. And they ripped the lid off the mineral feeder again. This doesn't happen very often, but everything around a farm just needs maintenance. There's a pin that's supposed to hold the lid on, and I can't find it, so I'm seeing what I have that I can hack it together with something. Farmer hack incoming. What do you think? Last a little while? Until I get to fix it again. Maybe do it better next time. Here I'm putting permethrin on their back rub. They have to walk under this to get to water, so multiple times a day they will be applying permethrin, and this is for fly control. There are many different options for fly control, but permethrin is one of the least toxic, so that's what we do. But you've got to do something. The flies will get so bad and will harass the cattle so much that they'll actually not eat and not breed. So this is very dilute. There's 20 mLs of permethrin concentrate in 1 gallon of mineral oil. So that's mostly mineral oil that you're seeing. And we put about a half gallon on their rub every week. You drinking enough there, Buttercup? That's basically a big toilet tank. There's a float valve inside there, and it fills up to a certain level and shuts off. Cows come and drink, and it fills up again. Yeah, those floats keep the water from growing algae and baking in the sun. The cattle just push it down and drink. Yeah, the flies sort of come in like waves, it seems, and they're not horrible right now, but they're not good. So recharging that fly rub probably knock these back some. And that guy with the blue ear tag, that's our bull. He'll be in with the herd for 2 months. Should get most of them, if not all of them, pregnant. That's the goal. Yep, that's definitely a bull. And here's 71. She's the herd matriarch. She's 10 years old and tame.
Ugh, go up and use that fly rub. It's fresh. You need it.
I want to clear all those junipers off of that fence, and I'm going to end up having to cut it by hand with a chainsaw, but going along there like it is now is not fun. If you're not familiar with that tree, it's an eastern red cedar. They're spiky. They're kind of unpleasant to work with. So let's make that a little easier before I get to the handwork. I've cleared junipers on a fence line in a previous video, but I didn't have a side cutter then. Getting to the base of the trees was not at all fun, and I'm hoping that using the side cutter first will make this unpleasant job a little more tolerable. That's all it takes, just knocking them back a little bit, and yeah, that's gonna be so much easier now. So to complete a review, you have to give the negatives. What would I say I don't like about it? Well, it is a little bit hard to see when you're using it, but I think that's more a function of the skid steer and the fact that you're working off to the side and instead of right in front of you. You know, I'm constantly looking around the pillar of the skid steer when I use it. I don't really see a solution for that. It comes from the fact that you're working off to the side, which is one of the great advantages of it, so yeah. But be aware, when you're using it, it can be kind of hard to see. The other thing I could say, at times I wish it had a bigger cutter diameter. It's 42 inches, but I think if it was bigger, yeah, that would be nice, but it's also going to be heavier, make you more tippy. You know, there's trade-offs with everything. I don't really have anything that I would necessarily change. Actually, there is one thing that I did. I welded this washer to the wing nut because it was annoying. Every time you would open this, the washer would then fall down. Trying to get it to go back up was not easy to do. But with it welded on, that's a piece of cake. There's my big critique. So I know it probably doesn't seem like much, but to just be able to walk up to the base of these trees and start cutting and not have to deal with all the limbs hitting you in the face and scratching you up, it really makes this a lot easier. That'll be a lot easier in the future if some idiot doesn't let it go so far. Jeez, some people. So if the side cutter isn't my favorite attachment, what is? Well, I'd have to say it's this grapple. This thing just saves me so much back-breaking work and makes it easy, especially when I can sit in the air conditioning on a hot day and clean things up. Thing cuts so nice. I mean, I've cut some really big stuff with it, and it just chews right through it. It's awesome.
So this is a stack of firewood that I'm in the middle of processing. I go through somewhere around 13, 14 cords of firewood every year, so I've been working on that a lot lately. The Yanmar is a huge help with this. I use the log splitter attachment that I made in that previous video, and it does all the splitting for me. Still working great. This is the skid steer bucket that I put a new cutting edge on that I'm about to run into.
Yeah, that's a good spot for that. I got some dry storage. It's out of the way. This is the morning sun, so it does get hot in the morning, but all the afternoon sun will be shaded from those trees. Metal containers get pretty darn hot. I need to paint it white. Yeah, you might ask yourself, what's the shipping container for? Well, the plan was I was going to tear down my stable and turn it into my shop, and this was going to be for, I have two of these. These were going to be for storage in that process. But we've kind of changed the plan, so actually I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these. And right now I'm actually thinking if I keep the doors open and I put a piece of roof over that so water can't get into it, I might just make it an auxiliary wood shed, because this all needs a place to go. And I think it would dry out quite nicely in there. Bad idea?
The other nice thing about this location is you can't see it from the house anymore. That'll make the boss happy.
It's starting to rain. So there you go, guys. Rut side cutter. That's the third attachment of Ruts that I've used, and I've liked them all. They're built by someone who obviously actually uses them. They're built heavy enough that they're not going to get torn up doing the job that they need to do, and they're built to last. So yeah, I bought their skid steer bush hog, and I also bought the mulcher for the Yanmar excavator, and they're both really nice machines. And I want to thank Rut for sending me this, an attachment I didn't know I wanted. Pretty handy thing to have around. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.